Hello, my name is Charles Frazier and welcome to my garden. Now this is the end of January. Now this holds my rain gauge, holds the glass tube of my rain gauge. Of course I have it on the inside right now because I do not want it to freeze and burst. But just because it is freezing temperatures outside does not mean that you cannot be doing something outside in the garden. Of course, you know, one of my slogans is, a gardener's work is never done. And so we're going to be looking at what we can be doing out in the garden today. We're going to be also looking at some things that I am currently growing in a container. And then also, while it is in the dormant stage of our shrubs and rose bushes and things, we're going to do a little trimming on the rose bush. But we've just got some great hints that will help you today. Well, we are out here in one of our garden spots that we have, and I have a pile of manure that is here before me. Now, this is rabbit manure from some of my rabbits, and there are different kinds of manure. There's horse manure, there's rabbit manure, there's cow manure, there's chicken manure, and all of them work differently. Like for instance, rabbit manure will not burn your plants at any particular time. I mean, you can apply it during the middle of summer right beside the plants in moderation. Whereas some other ones like chicken manure or others would burn a plant very, very quickly because of the high concentrates that are in the manure. Some that are great, hey, I would take any of them, horse, cow, rabbit, chicken things. Now, there are others. When you deal with the manures, always remember this, that especially when you deal with horse and cow manure, you are going to get some weed seed in that manure. So you're going to have to battle the weed seed. But it is a great combination because as we think of the soil, as we think of our Creator that has made here, there are no new soils being made. And so what we have here, we have to amend what we have. And so that soil amendment is very, very important. And manures provides a great soil amendment, helps with that organic matter going back into the soil, enriching the soil so that you can grow better vegetables. So here we are in the middle of winter. In the end of January, I have this manure here, and so I am going to apply this manure. And so basically, you know, I've taken my wheelbarrow and these like 2 or 3 little wheelbarrows full that I have dumped out here, and I'm just going to, you know, just kind of apply it to the garden and just what I would call just broadcasting it all around, you know, around this pile here. You know, of course, I have several gardens, and so we have to be selective yearly on what I do in regards to manure, but I'm just kind of broadcasting this out. Here it is in the middle of winter. This is going to be great for the soil. It will have time to process a little bit, and so you know, it's going to work out very, very good, and it will help with vegetable production next year. So this kind of gives you a little idea. Now, there are other ways that you can do this, but for me, just broadcasting it is fine. But then also, if you want to go to an extra measure, you know, you may want to, since it is winter time, one thing that you can do is according to how big your garden space is. But now, of course, like, you know, with me, you know, I have like 5 gardens, okay? So it'd be hard for me to do this in all of my gardens. But, you know, if I'm wanting this to get down into the soil a little bit, if you have a smaller garden, if you would like to go ahead and turn this under a little bit, since it is, you say, well, no, wait a minute. It is, you know, it's very, very wet right now. And do you need to be working the soil wet? Well, you've got to remember, we're in the middle of January, okay? And being in the middle of January, or the end of January, excuse me, we are going to have a lot more freezes. And we're going to have snow, which, you know, snow is the poor man's fertilizer. And so this soil will freeze and thaw. And this will help this working into the soil, so it will not give you a lot of dirt clods later on, since there is a freezing process that's going on. So you can take a shovel and do that as well. Also, another little tool that I have that a lot of times I'll use this in the raised beds, and I will take, like for instance here, putting some of the manure right there, and then twisting and disturbing the soil so that it will start to go into the soil if need be. But if not, I'm okay with laying here on top of the soil until I'm ready to start tilling in that of the spring. This is the manure. We're going to be showing you some other things. All right, we have just kind of finished up with the manure there. As we say there, you know, rabbit manure, chicken manure, cow manure, horse manure. Cow manure does work very, very well because a cow has several stomachs and it has to process the food through those stomachs there. So that makes a difference, whereas a horse does not have as many stomachs. But then also, just not only manure, we want to talk about other organic matter that we can apply to the garden. And here I have a pile of leaves. And this is also not only leaves here, but we also have pine needles, or is what we call pine straw, that is here, and it does very, very well as amending your soil, helping composting as well, because you know so many times with our soil it gets so compacted, very, very compacted, and it needs to be loosened up a bit. Well, this organic matter gives that opportunity to loosen the soil while this is decaying. And like I say, right now, this is the end of January, so we're going to apply this to the top of the garden space and let it sit for the remainder of the winter. One thing that we do want to address is that some say, well, I have heard that leaves will add too much acidity to the soil. Some say, well, too much pine needles or pine straw can change the acidity in the soil. Yes, it can, but it has to be very large amounts. And probably for no more that you're going to put on your gardening, it is not going to make any difference at all. And but with a soil test, you can kind of see where your soil acidity is and check on that and do measures to correct that. But with leaves, I mean, we could probably pile this garden this deep and let it decompose and turn into compost, and it will be fine. But here with this, just kind of giving you a little bit of an idea of what we do here. Like you say, these are just some leaves and pine needles, and do the same as we did with that of the manure, of just taking and, you know, just spreading this out. Now the wind will kind of blow that around, so just kind of keep that in mind. But it also provides a little bit of mulch, as we might say, for the harsh winter there for the soil, if you want to think about that. But mainly it's just to kind of lay up on the ground and continue to decompose. Now, while in the springtime, when the springtime comes, when I get out here as quick as I can, I will take my tiller and we will till this into the soil. But this just kind of helps loosen the soil so oxygen can get down into the soil, the root systems, all this benefits from amending our soil. Something else that you can put into the garden space in the wintertime, as we are kind of thinking about things that we can do. Here I have some leftover straw. Now this was a part of some fall decorations that we had back during October and November, and the straw got wet, and so it's not something that we could reuse for that kind of thing ever again. So I always take all of my leftover straw and use it in the garden. And one thing that we can use it, well, like in the summertime, a lot of times I'll hold over some straw that I used back in the fall, and I will mulch my tomato plants down, and that is very, very helpful and very, very effective. But then also we just wanted to show you that you can use the straw to amend your soil as well. And so we have some here, and we're going to do just some scattering again with putting this on the soil, on the garden soil here. And of course it will rain on it and snow on it and weather on it and continue for it to decompose. And like I say, this is helpful maybe in some area of your garden, and if you have some erosion going on and you might want to slow some erosion down. Okay, as you see, we've kind of worked this straw down. I'm going to continue to spread that out just a little bit more. And then we're going to kind of do a little something else here that we want to talk about. Because we've used three things here. We've used leaves, we have used manure, and we have used straw. Another great benefit if we were to combine all these, the manure, the straw, and the leaves in that. So we're gonna do a little combining there. All right, we have some leaves and pine straw, and then of course this is wheat straw that is on the bottom. And so we're going to just kind of spread this out. Now, if I had a small gardening space, I would probably combine all of these. But now this gardening space here is probably 35 feet by 110. So it's quite a large space. So that's why I would probably do it just different things at different places. Now we're going to take the manure and put the manure on top. All right, now we can do one or two things. Now I have thrown this rabbit manure on top of this, and you know, the reason why I put it on top, some say, well, shouldn't you put it on bottom and put these others on top? Well, this provides weight for the straw and for the leaves, and so it'll kind of keep it in place. But then also the manure will leach into the leaves and the manure will leach into the straw, so you'll get added benefit to that. But then also, if you wanted to, you know, stir it in a little bit, you could also stir it in. And basically what we have created here is a compost pile. And you can do that throughout the winter. You know, if you want to bring some things like leaf lettuce or cabbage or things like that, greens that you're throwing out or going to be throwing into the trash, you can add to this throughout the winter. But these are just some of the things that you can do on the outside during the winter time, because it's going to be a while, it may be a good while, before I'll be able to get out here and start tilling and working up the garden in the spring. But while I am not working it to plant something, yet I am helping the garden and amending soil in the process to have me a better growing season. Well, as we have stated, it is the end of January, and believe it or not, even in January, I'm starting to see little leaves come out on this knockout rose bush. This is a pink knockout rose bush someone gave to us years ago. And it's, even though we're in the middle of winter, you know, we've had some warm, well, it's been a milder winter this year. And so the leaves are already starting to come out on this knockout rose bush. And so, you know, I want to do some pruning today, pruning this rose bush back. One good thing about knockout rose bushes, they are very forgiving when it comes to pruning. And you can be very, very serious in your pruning, and it will be productive for you. Now, last year, I did not prune this bush, and it did not bloom as good as it has in the past. And so this year, one of my priorities is to go ahead and prune this rose bush and get it ready for the growing season so that I can just enjoy some beautiful pink knockout roses here on this rose bush. There are some things that we want to point out, like this one that I'm holding in my hand. This is very small, smaller than a pencil, and that's always my rule of thumb. If it is the size of a pencil, cut it out. cut it out. Because the canes, you won't, I don't know, you could use maybe 5 or 6 large canes, and we'll demonstrate that to you, but anything that is small, I'm going to take out for ventilation. You wouldn't think it, but a rose bush does need some ventilation as it gets severely hot in the summertime. But we're going to start working on this and taking out, I'm definitely going to take out all the dead cane. Anything that I see that died last year, you know, it's not coming back, so I'm going to remove that dead cane. Any cane that is the size of a pencil or smaller, I'm going to remove it especially. But then also when I come down to the bottom there, we're probably going to go down to maybe about 18 inches at the bottom and prune from there. And what we're going to do, we're just going to kind of start trimming. And you also need some tools there because these thorns on these rose bushes can be difficult to work with. And so I'm going to kind of prune and clean up as I go to make it a little easier on me. And also, if you see any damaged cane, you know, something that maybe has damaged that cane, go ahead and remove it because that is going to create problems for you. Now, like for instance on this one here, I trimmed this one back because see, I saw this kind of decay that was going on, and even though, you know, that is a halfway decent cane right there, but yet you know, it's decaying right here, and then plus, you know, there's nothing going on right here, and in fact, that is, you know, that's nothing, and so that's why I went ahead and removed this one because it's not going to be a big help, not going to be a big benefit, and so that's kind of the dead cane that you have on your rose bushes. Like that cane there's been there probably for, you know, 3 or 4 years now, but it had since died, and so I wanted to remove it. And try to cut at an angle on your cane as best you can. I'm going to go back and trim some of these up as I can get better in there to them. Why do you trim at an angle? So that the water does not pond up on the stem, and that it, you know, when it rains or whatever that it does, it will remove itself quickly. Here's some dead cane that's died. It needs to be removed. I've left about 4 canes here. Now this one here is not what I like to see sometimes. I do like to have the canes growing in an outward way a little bit. These are kind of more bunched up, as you see right here, a little bit tighter than I would like to see. Hopefully we'll get some new growth this year that will fan out a little bit better, and I can go in there and trim that out and help that out. Like I say, this rose bush was a gift, And so I want to keep it as long as I can, appreciating the gift of this rose bush, but it will definitely do a lot better now since I have trimmed this up and got it ready for the growing season. Well, we've been in the garden and we've also trimmed a rose bush on the way, but now we're on the south side of the house. And as gardeners go, we've always got to be working on something. Well, I have tried something new this year. Back 2 days before Christmas, I got to working out here in this old wheelbarrow. This old wheelbarrow has holes in the bottom, so I put some soil in here, and I knew that it would drain properly because of the holes that were in the bottom. And then also I have some flower pots there that we'll put flowers in when it comes summertime. But a friend of mine gave me some candy onions, and so I am growing candy onions currently here in the garden. Now, several years ago, I went to Monticello and visiting the home of Thomas Jefferson. Loved that trip, and hopefully may get to go back there and here in a few weeks. But I saw that they were growing leeks. I was there in March, and they had been growing them all winter. And I went to the horticulturalist that was there and asked him about that. Had it got too cold yet? Had it been too cold on the leeks? He said, well, the coldest night they'd had was all 27 degrees, and these leeks by March was already about that tall. Worked fine. Well, I thought I'm going to plant onions this winter and see how that they do. Now, we had a few days ago in this month that it got down 17, 18 degrees. Since these are in containers and since this is in a wheelbarrow, I moved it to the inside garage a couple of days while the cold temperatures were getting cold at night. But they survived, they did well inside. I have now brought them back outside, and I will, as long as it doesn't get any cooler than 27 degrees, I will leave them outside. But to kind of show you what's going on, this morning when I got out here it was 36 degrees, but now it's about 43 degrees. But just kind of show you the difference on being the south side of this house. I've got my Ryobi thermometer here that I use, and like I say, this is probably one of my toys that I have to work in the greenhouse with, just checking temperatures and things, but we do other things. Just like checking the side of this vinyl siding. Like I said, we're dealing with 43 degrees here outside, and let me give 3 checks. 91 degrees it is currently on this vinyl siding. Well, guess what? This 91 degrees is radiating to my onions. All right, well, let's just check the brick, looking at the brick. The brick, 1, 2, 3 different tests, 78 degrees is what the brick is. All right, well, what about this container here? This wheelbarrow, how warm? I can feel the sides of it, and the sun is shining good. And we'll do 1, 2, 3, 100 degrees. And so all that is going to raise the soil temperature there, which will be good for the onions. And just kind of give you an idea of what's going on with the others that are here, like the pots. All right, the green pot there, the deep green pot, is 118 degrees on the outside. So it provides a great growing environment. Of course, the sun is shining today, and I'm glad that it is shining because I love to see the sun shine in the wintertime because we have a lot of dark and dreary days. But today will be a great growing day for these onions, and we will kind of track these along. And we'll do some other gardening shows this spring, and we will see how that they are growing. But I do like the selection of the candy onion. For many of us that like onions, we like the Vidalia onion that has been a favorite around for years and years and years. But the candy onion is a great sweet onion. It will get pretty good sized. It is a large onion. And we've been selling these at the farmers markets now for several years, and customers seem to enjoy them and to like them very, very well. So yeah, I do have a little project that I am working on right now in the middle of winter and trying to grow some candy onions. Something else I wanted to share with you. The other day we were in Paducah there, and I was noticing that since this is January, they have putting their calendars at 50% and their planners at 50%, and you know, I got this nice planner for just a few dollars. And may I say that keeping records is very important. Most of us will say, well, I will remember that. Well, most of the time we will forget what we are thinking about. But if we make a notation, if we maybe write a notebook or a journal, will be very helpful. And for gardening, it does. I love just going back and checking records and see what I did the previous year and what time that I did that. But this one here is a 17-month planner, and it's really nice. And it's got the months of the year in it. And like for instance, right here, if we can kind of zoom in, you can see that we have the total month of January that is there, and you can make some small notations like, you know, today, as we think of January the 27th here, we can talk about how that I added the manure and the compost and trimmed the rose bush back here. But then also what I love about this one, not only do you have this calendar here, which would be like a normal calendar, but then like on Monday, the 27th, I have plenty of writing space here to record all that I have done. And so, you know, I'm very tickled about that, because I can go back if I want to go back to the month and just do a quick check. Okay, when did I trim that rose bush back, or when did I do this with the onions? I can do a quick check here, and then also go back to the day. And it's just got some just some neat things there. It's got a place for notes and various things, and you know, I can keep this for years to come. And because you learn something about gardening every year. Our climate has definitely been changing quite a bit. You know, used to we had earlier springs. Now our springs are not as early, and so we have to wait a little bit longer before we can kind of get started. We've learned that, you know, starting in August and planting things in August, you know, I've done videos on that. You can have just a great garden beginning in the month of August, and so with all these things here are very helpful. And so I just kind of, you know, for a few dollars you can have a nice planter, and then keep record of what you are doing in the garden when you're planting seeds, when you're harvesting. You know, see how many days that it was when you planted them till you start seeing them sprout out of the ground. How many days it is till you're harvesting, and also record what you harvested. You know, if you had 2 rows of green beans, I remember here a few years ago, I had 2 rows of green beans. They were probably 27 feet long, and I was able to can 35 quarts of green beans. It was an excellent time. The season was just perfect on that, and so I wrote that down where I could remember that. So we just wanted to let you know of something that I'm going to be using this year on a 17-month planner. Well, that is the end of our show for today. We hope that you have enjoyed it. We're going to be doing some other things this winter. I have a raised bed that needs some special attention. The timbers there are now rotten, and I need to replace them. Also, we are going to be adding some soil to that of the raised bed. Then we have a little greenhouse that I raise my tomato plants and cabbage plants and various other things in there. It needs some attention too. And so we have some other episodes that's going to be coming up. But we thank you for watching today. Take care, and God bless.